the Mississippi Crop Situation Podcast featuring the Crop Doctors.
Good morning from the Crop Doctors Podcast studio in Stoneville. Tom and I have Mr. Gene Merkl on the phone with us this morning. We've been anticipating getting Gene on this summer as he's had some changes in the pesticide certification program, so that's what we're going to talk about this morning. But Tom, I got you in the morning. You've been complaining about doing podcasts in the afternoon. So
yeah, I don't seem to be all there when we get to the afternoon. There's a little too much goes on upstairs. Or maybe not enough.
No excuses. This is your moment to shine.
After the last 2 weeks, I don't know that I need to be shining much. A little dull right now.
Well, Gene, we're happy to have you, man.
Glad to be on board with you.
Gene runs the pesticide certification. Is that accurate, Gene, or am I using incorrect words?
Technically, the Pesticide Safety Education Coordinator for the state of Mississippi. We work in conjunction with the Bureau of Plant Industry, certification and training of applicators, private applicators, commercial applicators, license holders, and that's our primary function.
All right, well, answer me this, Gene. In the years you've been doing that, how many people have you trained?
Gosh, it's sort of hard to say for the commercial certificates and license holders. I would say on average about.
Hey, no! Before you say a number, Gene, nobody's going to know. So just throw out any number that makes yourself look good
is acceptable.
Yeah. Well, I would say on average probably 300 to 500 per year, and so been doing this about 10 years. So you could say 3,000 to 5,000. Somewhere in that neighborhood.
That's a very solid number, I think.
First thought that wants to come out of my mouth is he's carrying those extension metrics. Thank you. Thanks, Gene. We appreciate the help, man. Those numbers are helpful.
Well, it's a labor of love, I can tell you, because I often tell my commercial recertification classes, sometimes they complain about the 5 hours worth of training we have to sit through, and then I'm very joyful to tell them that for every one of these sessions that they get to sit through, I get to sit through 75 of them. So it's I know my material well, and I enjoy presenting it, and that's one of the things I love about what I do. It's an opportunity to help people.
So I say you see those slides on a loop in your head when you're going to sleep at night when you're doing those trainings. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
I always get a kick out of them doing them here at Stoneville, Tom, and I walk down the hall and I hear John Bird talking.
Yeah.
And then look in the door, there's like a hologram of Bird on the screen.
Uh-huh. Like, oh, yeah. It's just like standing there with them.
Bird's been part of our program at least since I've been on board, and I know for probably a decade prior to my coming on board here. So
absolutely. John's always been really committed to that and does a good job with it, too.
I'd go so far as to say he does a great job.
Yeah.
He's fantastic. I like to just sit and listen. I don't want to say anything when I'm around him. I just want to listen to what he has to say and take it all in.
Oh, I like to poke the bear.
I know. I'm there for that, too, and I enjoy that as well.
John, what do you think about ABC? And then 3 hours later, you're collecting information.
Did we cover that in the Farmer's Almanac, John?
He will tell you.
Yes, he will. It's fantastic.
Gene, last year you described to us things you had done previously and how you got to your current role. So folks can go back and find that if they want to. But I guess tell us about your program and what it does, and then we'll progress into the updates that y'all have done to the training itself.
We're technically a federally mandated program. This was put together when FIFRA, the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act, came into being. And it designated that certain individuals in 50 states and territories would be tasked with pesticide safety education training. And our program was started by Mr. Elmo Collum, back in the late 80s, early 90s. We've been essentially carrying on that legacy that Mr. Collum left us ever since I've been on board here, which was August 1 of 2015. We primarily train and recertify private applicators, commercial applicators, and license holders in the state, which there are requirements that recertification training be every 5 years for our private applicators. That's primarily our ag producers. And every 3 years for our commercial applicators and our license holders. We have been in the process of revamping all of our study manuals for the coursework that we have, and I think mostly germane to your audience today, to our producers, is going to be the changes that we've made to the private applicator training. Now, you may remember from previous years that our private applicator training consisted of a series of 4 videos, and that all changed with COVID because we had to come up with an online version of that, and so it became about a 2-hour video deal there, and then there's a 25-question test you had to pass at 100%. The new training that we've put together, and again, this is a mandated change by the Environmental Protection Agency. We first began to discuss this with the EPA in 2018, and there have been back and forth on that. So it's taken us all this time just to get a working proposal approved. And now our training consists of approximately 5 hours of video material, various topics, but everything from pesticides in the environment to personal protective equipment to calibration. And that training comes with a 55-question exam. You have to pass with a 70% in order to get your recertification.
Gene, back up to where you started just for a second before we get too far removed from it. Describe the level. So you have a certified applicator, then a license holder. What's the difference in those two specifically that require the training every 3 years?
Right. Private applicator is an individual producing agricultural commodity on his own or leased property. A commercial applicator is one that is working for a larger entity, such as, say, for instance, I hold a demonstration and research category 10 certificate I work for as an employee of the university. It could also be for individuals who work as an employee of a right-of-way company or even Department of Transportation and doing right-of-way work. And then license holders are individuals who are pursuing fee-for-hire basis. In other words, they're charging for their services. So that's the primary differences.
Okay. I thought that was the case, but I just wanted to clarify that. Tom, did you have a...
No, I'm just a very similar question. I think that's good to kind of delineate what the differences are between those. That's important.
Gene, on the updated training, the volume of training or training time plus the exam, that seems to be a pretty big difference from what it was previously. I mean, go from a 25-question test to a 55-question test. Do you feel like the current version is more rigorous than the previous version?
Well, that was the intent. In the changes that were mandated by the Environmental Protection Agency, they wanted us to certify private applicators up to the same standard and level as our commercial applicators and license holders. We were given a list of points that had to be met, and it's actual several pages in the Federal Register that describe exactly how we had to present these changes, and that's essentially what we did. We went through existing training and just simply added and went back to the CFR and checked off the boxes that we needed to check off to make sure that the information that we were presenting covered the new training points that the regulations require.
Well, and I would assume a lot of that has been precipitated based on the introduction of auxin-based chemistries, the changes in paraquat labeling, and probably Endangered Species Act.
All of those are part and parcel, but actually those are the notion as to what these changes would be was probably penciled in and understood long before those things became issues. But those are part and parcel of the training that we're doing now. And we also make that aware in nearly all of our presentations that we make that are face-to-face trainings. All three of those are something that we put on the forefront.
I suspect those rise into prominence probably delayed the introduction of your updated training, Gene, if I had to guess.
Substantially.
I'd say the biggest, with the Endangered Species Act, as you may well know, that thing is still in flux, and we still got miles to go, although there are some labels out there now that are requiring reference to Bulletin's Live 2. These instructions are intended to protect threatened and endangered species and their designated critical habitat that may be required for certain pesticides and as indicated on the label. We have to be cognizant of that because some of that is in effect now, even though they haven't gotten all the mitigation measures worked out for that. So again, we're sort of stuck with waiting to see exactly what the final outcome is going to be. And until that, we just have to be vigilant and realize that the label is still the law, and we need to operate accordingly.
And
I'm sorry.
Based on that, do you see any additional changes moving forward over the next couple of years?
I think without a doubt, as these right now we've got, there have been some herbicide mitigation measures put forth. They've been reviewed and they are still in the process of finalizing those. There's an insecticide mitigation plan that is being considered now. And all of these have got to come to fruition before we can make a final indication as to what the mitigation measures are for any of these products. In my humble opinion, I think they've gotten the cart a little bit ahead of the horse. I would have tried to figure out a way to make sure we had all the details ironed out before I launched it, but that's not the way that it turned out.
We've done at least 3 podcasts on endangered species, possibly
I'd
4.
Say 4 or 5. Probably
at least
covered a lot of that.
3 dedicated specifically to it, and probably it came up in some other ones too. And talking to some folks that knew infinitely more than Tom or I combined about it, and I've had it in extension talks, and I don't understand it. And I've made it a point to understand it, and it's just extremely complex. So in your role, trying to explain it and explain that it's fluid too is, I know that's bound to be frustrating for your group.
Yeah, how do you teach something that you don't know exactly what you're teaching, or even worse is you teach it one way and then, oh, by the way, we've changed it and now it's a different way.
Right.
The thing that to me is most frustrating is that a lot of these pesticide use limitation areas and the designated areas where there are endangered species are based on modeling rather than actual counts or indications that there are really endangered species there. And so it's putting the most pressure on applicators. You have to assume that everything is going to be a problem rather than try to figure out where the real problem is and then act accordingly.
As it stands, and again, it's in the process of being edited and updated, but that herbicide strategy, we really just eliminated a lot of things. If we had used the version that was proposed in March, it was going to be really difficult to continue to use a lot of our mainstream products. And fortunately, powers that be recognized that and kind of went back to the drawing board. And so we don't know yet what the updated version will look like, but hopefully it will be a lot more usable than what it was originally.
Well, if you have, for a small acreage farmer, somebody that's got a 40-acre field and you wind up having to put a 300-foot buffer around the perimeter of that field, that's more or less taking up 50% or more of your usable area. It's just not tenable.
And I believe Andy Whittington, we had Andy Whittington from Farm Bureau in with us, Gene, a few weeks ago.
3-4 weeks ago.
I think Andy touched on that very thing, that what you just described, maybe not as big of an issue on a standard farm in the Delta counties, but you get into the hill counties and, yeah, you got a 40-acre field that's surrounded by woods or surrounded by whatever, and if you've got to put that buffer in there, you don't have any field left or very small percentage of the field left.
And you've got a lot of postage stamp areas in this state when you get south of I-20 and definitely into the hills, and that's stuff that the best way to just describe it's off of Highway 82. I mean, you can get north and south off of that road and be like, never knew this was here.
Sadly, it hurts the small farmer much more than the bigger guys. Of course,
Certainly
we don't want anybody to get hurt, and we don't need anything to add to the cost of agricultural production. And that's something we're not even talking about yet. Is what's the cost?
Steve Martin is doing some projects on that very thing. What's the cost of the buffers and things related to the ESA mandates? There is a cost associated with it, and so been real proud to have Steve back over here at Stoneville, and he's making steps to work on that.
Our platform here, you may or may not know this, I recently was elected president of the American Association of Pesticide Safety Educators and have opportunity to meet with APCO and other organizations to discuss these things and be a part of the process of trying to come up with understanding of the mitigations or give input for these things. And our platform has certainly been enlarged by my election to this position, and we look forward to being able to do more to help what we can.
Gene, transition back to the specifics of your updated training. Mm-hmm. Aside from what we've been talking about related to endangered species, highlight some of the other changes that people might recognize when they've done the older version compared with the newer version.
The newer version is a complete revamping of the original videos that we had were ones that I inherited from Elmo Column 10 years ago, and they were outdated 10 years ago. So all of this new material we've taken PowerPoint presentations and turned them into videos with the help of Center for Technology Outreach. Big thanks to Steve Hankins over there for helping us get that off the ground. We've got a more updated version of the training. It's a lot more extensive. There's a total of about 5 hours of video material there, as opposed to the original training was only about an hour and a half. And again, the training based on the mandate stipulation had that contained certain elements in it, and that's how we geared those.
Am I to understand you can take all of this now online and don't necessarily need to go and attend one of the offered trainings at the county office level? Is that correct?
That is correct. And the other thing I would tell you that I haven't mentioned thus far, but you don't have to do the training to take the exam. You can take walk in and take the exam cold turkey, but you have to pass with 70%. And as I shared with you, everyone that has attempted to do the training online has passed at this point, and the average score was 83. So we feel pretty good about that.
When did the new training come online, Gene, and how many people have you trained through the newer version at this point?
July 1st was the opening date of the training, and we've had 26 come through the course, and all 26 have passed.
Okay. Well, that's a good number for just a couple of weeks at this point.
Last year, we did approximately 1,500 online trainings, and we expect that we'll be probably about the same. We have about 15,000 private applicators in the state, and those cycle, over a 5-year period. So it's probably about 3,000 a year or thereabouts that would come through or need to train. Thus far, we're really pleased with the results that we have.
If everything is available online now, then how has your specific week changed? Because you've always done a lot of running around conducting these trainings. So how has that shifted your work schedule?
Well, let me clarify. Most of the private applicator trainings are done by our agents, county agents, and those are done at the various county levels. And we've had actually only 2 trainings that I'm aware of with this new teaching material, and we've had, I think, 100% pass rate on that. But it has really not changed what I do at all. I still do my approximately 25 trainings per year, 6 different venues, once a quarter. So that has not really changed my running around much at all.
Gotcha.
Well, we don't want to change that. That's the best part of extension, isn't it? The fact that you get out of the office and can go see the general public and take care of things on a face-to-face level. It's the beauty of extension.
You show me a good extension person, and I'll show you somebody that loves people. Because you gotta love people to do what we do.
Okay, Gene, give us a few specifics. What date did that training take effect, and where can someone who's interested in it find it online?
The new private applicator training went into effect on July 1 of this year, and it's available on our extension webpage. Simply go to MSU Cares, and then under the agricultural tab, if you'll drop down to Pesticide Applicator Certification, and it will give you all the information you need to know about any type of pesticide applicator certification in the state.
Gene, just popped into my head. You mentioned that you could just take the test without going through the training videos. So would that also mean that I can stop watching the training videos? Some of the ones we've done in the past, once you clicked play, you were committed to going through the whole thing, and if you didn't complete it, then you had to start back at square one. But this is something somebody could kind of do on their own speed, too, to go through the training videos?
Yes, operate it more or less as you need. If you want to do 15 minutes an evening or 15 minutes at a time or during your lunch break, and then you can then go to the exam at any time in the process. And we've had some of these where you go through and maybe you didn't pass and you needed to retake it over. You just retake the exam again. It doesn't make you go back and watch all the videos.
Excellent. Well, Gene, we appreciate your time this morning, and we appreciate what you do.
I appreciate you guys giving us a voice, opportunity to say what's going on with this. We're really proud of what we put together. It was a team effort. We had folks from Center for Technology Outreach. As I said, Steve Hankins couldn't have done it without him and his group over there. We're really looking forward to getting this out in front of more people.
Thanks for your time this morning, Gene. We really appreciate it. It's good to talk to you.
Anytime I can do anything with you guys or something else comes up, I'll give you a shout.
Thank you.
The Mississippi Crop Situation Podcast is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.